The helicopter pilot who yesterday lost his life fighting the fires in Christchurch was a decorated and celebrated member of the New Zealand Army. Steve Askin enlisted in 1998. In 2011 he was with the SAS in Afghanistan when he was part of a widely reported action to reclaim a hotel in the capital from Taliban forces. He returned to New Zealand into civilian life, but he didn't cut all ties with the Army. Chief of Army Major General Peter Kelly joined us to tell us a bit about the Steve Askin they knew and loved.
Steve was a great soldier, and his loss will be felt deeply. You know, of course, his family, it's absolutely terrible. You know, Steve's the sort of person you'd think would live to 100. He had that sort of energy. And so his family and his children, you know, this is an absolute tragedy. But, you know, it's not surprising with Steve that this is the sort of thing he is. You know, the way he does service to the community, his service to the Army, his service to New Zealand. You know, in a job like this, he'd be the first person to put his hand up.
Mm. He won a New Zealand Gallantry Star, which I think is that's high, isn't it? How far up the chain is that?
It's just below Victoria Cross.
Right. Okay. So that's
incredibly high.
Yeah. And I'm reading the citation, and outstanding gallantry on several occasions in Afghanistan in 2011. So this was more than one incident. Yeah,
the citation refers to 3 incidents, but the one that he was photographed was perhaps the one that's reasonably well known, was the action in and around the Hotel Intercontinental in 2011.
In Kabul?
Yeah. And look, I can characterise that as you know, that was a tough fight. And when you see that photo and you look at him and you look into his eyes and you just see him physically, you just look at it and you say, that was a hell of a fight, that one. And it was. You know, he was incredibly lucky, as was the rest of that team. But their ability to respond, their ability to help the crisis response unit, who they were mentoring and training, when they came up against a particularly determined group of insurgents and Taliban, was instrumental. His leadership and actions that day were instrumental in winning that particular battle.
And actually saving a lot of lives, right? Because as I recall it, and I'm hoping my memory serves me correctly, the Taliban came in, they got through the security guards, the hotel was on fire, part of the hotel was on fire, wasn't it?
That's right. The Taliban had seized control of the hotel, they'd killed a number of the guests, people were holed up in their rooms, the Taliban themselves had spread throughout the building, and the Afghani authorities were trying to deal with the situation. The crisis response unit came and responded and did a pretty good job in clearing it, but then they came up against a particularly determined group, and that's when our lads went in, just to give them that sort of impetus and leadership to really carry the day. But that went for a number of hours, and a number of lads were injured, and incredibly the fighting was nasty. There were IEDs, there were suicide bombers, there were snipers. You know, it was about as nasty as you can get.
And really close quarter fighting.
Close quarter fighting in the room next door, in the hallway down the room, going up the stairwell, people shooting at you.
And that's one of the 3 events that the citation lists for the Gallantry Star.
Absolutely. You know, that's right. There were a couple of others. I won't really talk to the others in that sense, but you can sort of characterise it that, you know, Steve had that sort of steely determination. He grew up in rural New Zealand. You know, he loved the outdoors. He was lean. He was fit. He was just capable. He was smart. He was. That unit attracts a lot of people like that, and they find their feet there and they thrive. And he was a strong leader, and people would follow him.
They find a sense of identity too, don't they? Because sometimes, and I'm not being pejorative here at all, but that they have a great and singular purpose, but they don't quite know what to point it at, right?
Look, yeah, look, that unit has certainly there is a purpose and a focus to it.
Yeah.
And all those that serve in and around it take on that mission and that focus.
And I hadn't realised you have reserves. You have SAS reserves. So Steve left the Army in 2013, but remained a reserve. It was new to me that you have reserves.
Reserves in that unit or reserves in the Army? But,
well, no, reserve. I knew you had reserves in the Army, but I just thought the SAS you were either in or out. But he'd remained a reserve, hadn't he?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, there's a lot of lads when they come to transition out to